Marriage is one of the greatest blessings that Allah has given us in this life. It is not just about companionship, it is about responsibility, trust, mercy, and building a family that worships Allah together. But one of the most important questions young people ask is, when is the right time to marry? And how do I know if I am ready for marriage? Today, I want to speak to you with honesty, clarity, and compassion. Because marriage is one of the most serious commitments you will ever make in your life. It is not something to rush into just because of pressure from society, friends, or family. It is also not something to delay endlessly out of fear, materialism, or unrealistic expectations. Islam gives us balance, and that balance is what we need to understand. Many people think that the right age to marry is a number. They ask, is it 20? Is it 25? Is it 30? But in Islam, the right age is not a number, it is about readiness. You could be 19 and be more ready for marriage than someone who is 35, or you could be 30 and still not ready to carry the responsibilities of marriage. Readiness is about maturity, responsibility, and your relationship with Allah. So, what does readiness look like? First, it means emotional maturity. Marriage is not about always feeling butterflies or romance. It is about patience when things get hard. It is about controlling your anger. It is about forgiving mistakes, and it is about communicating with kindness. If you are quick to lose your temper, if you always want things your way, or if you think marriage is only about what you get and not what you give, then you are not ready. Second, readiness means financial responsibility. You do not have to be rich to get married. Islam does not require you to have a palace, a luxury car, or a huge bank account. But you must have the ability to provide the basics for your spouse with dignity. You must be responsible enough to manage your money, to work hard, and to share what you have with contentment. Marriage is about teamwork, and if you are not willing to carry responsibility, then you are not yet ready. Third, readiness is about spiritual grounding. If you are careless about your prayers, if you are far from Allah, if you are not working on your faith, then marriage will not magically fix that. In fact, your weakness in faith may cause problems in your marriage. A marriage built on taqwa, on God consciousness, is a marriage that survives storms. So before you marry, ask yourself, am I trying to improve my relationship with Allah? Because if you cannot fulfill your duty to Allah, how will you fulfill your duty to your spouse? Now, let's talk about the cultural pressures. Many young people feel suffocated by society. Some are pressured into marrying too early when they are not emotionally or financially ready, and that can lead to hardship. Others are pressured into delaying marriage endlessly because of career, education, or unrealistic family demands, and that can also lead to hardship. Islam does not say rush blindly or delay forever. Islam says, marry when you are capable and responsible. There is also a dangerous misconception among young Muslims who think marriage will solve all their personal struggles. They think, if I get married, I will stop my bad habits. If I get married, I will become mature. If I get married, my life will be perfect. The truth is, marriage does not fix you. Marriage exposes who you really are. If you are impatient, marriage will show your impatience. If you are lazy, marriage will reveal your laziness. If you are irresponsible, marriage will magnify that irresponsibility. So do not enter marriage expecting it to change you. Work on yourself first, and then marriage will become a blessing, not a burden. Another question people ask is, what if I am ready, but the right person has not come yet? This is a real struggle. Many people are emotionally, financially, and spiritually ready, but proposals do not come, or families block them, or circumstances are difficult. To those people, remember, your timing is not forgotten. Allah's plan for you is not lost. Delayed marriage is not rejection, it is preparation. Keep your heart patient, keep your dua strong, and keep your trust in Allah. The right person will come at the right time, and when they do, you will see the wisdom behind the wait. So, is there a perfect age for marriage? The answer is no. There is no magic number, but there is a right state of heart, a right level of responsibility, and a right mindset. If you are mature enough to handle conflict, responsible enough to provide and share, and sincere enough to put Allah first, then you are ready. And when you are ready, do not delay out of fear of people's opinions or fear of the unknown. Trust Allah, take the means, and move forward with courage. At the same time, if you are not ready, do not rush into it just because others are pressuring you. Marriage is not a race. It is not about who gets married first or who has the biggest wedding. It is about building a partnership that leads you both to Jannah. So, my brothers and sisters, take this reminder deeply. Marriage is a blessing, but it is also a responsibility. It requires patience, sacrifice, and faith. The right age is not written in numbers. It is written in your readiness, your maturity, and your relationship with Allah. Work on yourself now. Build your character, strengthen your faith, learn responsibility. And when the time comes, you will enter marriage not as a child, but as a servant of Allah ready to fulfill one of the most sacred trusts of life. And remember, no matter when it happens, early or late, quickly or after waiting, Allah's timing is always perfect. Trust Him, prepare yourself, and you will see that marriage at the right time with the right person will be one of the greatest gifts of your life. When people think about marriage, the very first question that often comes up is about age. Many cultures attach numbers to marriage, believing that the right age is early 20s or late 20s, or sometimes even 30s, depending on where you live. Families start asking questions, communities begin to apply pressure, and individuals feel overwhelmed because they think if they do not marry by a certain number, they have failed. But in reality, in the sight of Allah, the right age for marriage is not a number on your birth certificate. It is about whether or not you are prepared to carry the responsibility, the emotional weight, and the spiritual trust that comes with marriage. You could be someone who is only 19 or 20 years old, but has developed maturity, responsibility, and a grounded faith in Allah that makes you ready to take care of a spouse, build a household, and navigate life's challenges together. On the other hand, you could be someone who is 35, who has a career, wealth, and worldly accomplishments, yet still lacks the patience, self-control, and sense of duty needed for marriage. Readiness does not come automatically with age. It comes with maturity, responsibility, and a sincere connection to your Creator. Marriage in Islam is described as a trust and a partnership built on mercy and compassion. It requires sacrifice, compromise, and emotional strength. If you are still someone who reacts with anger at the smallest problem, if you cannot communicate with kindness, or if you are unable to forgive when mistakes are made, then regardless of your age, you are not yet ready to handle the demands of marriage. Emotional maturity is not about avoiding disagreements, but about handling them with wisdom. It is about knowing when to speak, when to remain silent, and when to put aside your pride for the sake of peace. Responsibility is another sign of readiness. Being responsible does not mean having millions in the bank or the best job in the world. Responsibility means that you are able to manage the blessings Allah has given you with gratitude and care. It means being willing to provide the basics with dignity, to share with contentment, and to accept that your wealth and your time are no longer just yours, but must now be shared with your spouse and, eventually, with your children. It means understanding that you cannot simply walk away when things get difficult, but must stand firm, patient, and committed. Many people enter marriage with the dream of only taking, when in reality, marriage is about giving and giving again. If you have not learned to take responsibility for yourself, for your words, for your actions, and for your future, then you are not ready, no matter how old you are. The third sign of readiness is your relationship with Allah. A person who is careless with their obligations to Allah, who does not prioritize prayer, who does not seek forgiveness or strive to improve in their faith, cannot expect marriage to magically transform their spirituality. If you are distant from Allah before marriage, you will likely carry that distance into marriage. A household built on faith begins with individuals who are striving to be close to Allah. That does not mean you have to be perfect, because no one is perfect, but it means you are sincere in your effort and serious about your deen. When both husband and wife have hearts connected to Allah, then their marriage is guided, protected, and strengthened. This is why, in Islam, the right age is not fixed. It is not about waiting until society thinks you are ready, nor is it about rushing because of pressure. It is about self-reflection. Am I mature enough to be patient? Am I responsible enough to share my life? Am I spiritually connected enough to handle this trust? The answers to these questions matter more than your age. There are countless examples around us. Some young people marry early, and because they are mature and responsible, they build beautiful families filled with love and mercy. Others marry late after years of waiting, but when they finally do, they enter with wisdom and stability that make their marriages strong. There are also people who marry at what society calls the perfect age, but because they lacked patience, responsibility, or spiritual grounding, their marriages collapse quickly. Age alone does not guarantee readiness. So, if you are asking yourself whether you are ready for marriage, do not simply look at the calendar. Look at yourself. Look at your habits, your patience, your ability to forgive, your willingness to sacrifice, and your closeness to Allah. These are the real signs that show whether or not you are prepared. And remember, if you are not yet ready, do not feel ashamed. It is better to wait and prepare yourself than to rush into a responsibility you cannot fulfill. At the same time, if you are ready but people say you are too young or too old, do not let their voices make you doubt. Your readiness is between you and Allah, and His wisdom is greater than any opinion of society. The right age to marry is when you are ready in your heart, your character, and your faith. It could be early, it could be later, but what matters is that when you step into this sacred bond, you do so with sincerity, responsibility, and a heart anchored in trust in Allah. That is when marriage becomes a blessing, not a burden, and a means of drawing closer to your Creator rather than being pulled away. Many people enter the idea of marriage with the belief that it will fix them, that it will cover their shortcomings, that it will magically heal their weaknesses. They imagine that the moment they marry, they will become patient, disciplined, responsible, and spiritually strong. But the reality is that marriage does not erase flaws, it magnifies them. If you lack patience before marriage, you will find yourself tested even more within marriage. If you are careless about discipline and responsibility before marriage, those weaknesses will surface in the daily realities of living with another human being. If your faith is weak, marriage will not automatically increase it, and in some cases, it may even expose how fragile it really is. This is why it is dangerous to think of marriage as a solution to personal problems rather than as a responsibility that requires preparation. Marriage is not a bandage for wounds that you refuse to heal. It is not a magic shield that hides your temper, your laziness, your carelessness, or your lack of direction. Instead, marriage is like a mirror that reflects who you truly are every day through the eyes of your spouse. If you are impatient, it will show when disagreements arise. If you are selfish, it will show when you are asked to share and compromise. If you are spiritually empty, it will show when your household is meant to be built on faith, but you cannot lead or contribute to it. These flaws cannot be hidden within marriage, they become even more visible. That is why self-development before marriage is essential. Too often, people convince themselves that marriage will discipline them. They think, when I have a wife or husband, I will automatically become more mature. But maturity is not a gift handed to you at marriage. It is something you must develop within yourself long before. If you cannot wake up on time for work or prayer, if you cannot control your words when you are angry, if you cannot manage your money responsibly, marriage will not suddenly teach you those things. In fact, your spouse may suffer the consequences of your lack of discipline, and the marriage may be damaged because of something you should have worked on before. The same applies to faith. Many people think that by marrying someone religious, they will become religious too. They expect that their spouse will drag them into goodness, force them into prayer, and correct their bad habits. But in truth, every individual is accountable to Allah for their own faith. Yes, a righteous spouse can be a source of motivation, but if you have no desire to improve yourself, you will become a burden rather than a partner. A marriage built on one person carrying all the spiritual weight will eventually struggle. Both partners need to be working on their faith, both need to strive for closeness to Allah, and both need to remember that their ultimate goal is to walk together toward Jannah. This is why marriage is called a sacred bond. It is not simply about companionship and comfort, but about responsibility and trust. You are not just marrying a person, you are entering into a lifelong test with them. You will see each other at your best and at your worst. If you have not trained yourself to be patient, merciful, and disciplined, those moments will expose your weaknesses more than ever. Instead of finding peace in marriage, you may create hardship, because you expected the marriage to fix you instead of fixing yourself first. Think about the reality of daily married life. It is not always romantic moments and beautiful days. It is chores, bills, sickness, disagreements, and constant acts of patience and compromise. If you are not prepared for that, your spouse will suffer from your lack of readiness. For example, someone who is quick to anger may constantly escalate small issues into big conflicts. Someone who is careless with money may cause stress and instability in the household. Someone who avoids responsibility may leave their spouse feeling alone in carrying the weight of the family. These are not small flaws that disappear. They are magnified in marriage, and they can destroy what should have been a source of mercy and love. That is why preparation before marriage is so important. Work on your patience now, so that when marriage tests you, you can respond with calmness instead of anger. Build discipline now, so that you can be consistent, reliable, and responsible when your spouse needs you. Strengthen your faith now, so that your home can be a place of worship and blessings rather than neglect. Do not wait for marriage to transform you into the person you want to be. Be that person first, and then marriage will be a blessing built on strength rather than a struggle built on weakness. It is also important to be honest with yourself. Many people are eager to marry because they want companionship, but they ignore their flaws. They brush aside their bad temper, their selfish habits, or their lack of direction, thinking that marriage will somehow cover them. But honesty with yourself means looking at your flaws and saying, I need to work on this now before I make someone else live with the consequences of my unpreparedness. This honesty is not weakness, it is strength. It is far better to face your flaws and improve them than to hide them and hurt someone else later. Remember that marriage is not about perfection, because no one is perfect. Everyone enters marriage with shortcomings. But there is a difference between someone who is actively working on themselves and someone who is ignoring their flaws. The one who strives for self-improvement brings humility and sincerity into marriage. They admit their mistakes, they seek forgiveness, and they try to grow. The one who ignores their flaws brings arrogance and denial, and this harms the marriage deeply. So the real question to ask is not, will marriage fix me, but rather, am I willing to fix myself before marriage? That effort, that sincerity, and that preparation are what make marriage a source of peace and growth instead of conflict and regret. Do not expect your spouse to complete what you refuse to work on. Do not wait for marriage to discipline you, to make you faithful, or to teach you patience. Start that journey now. When you enter marriage with sincerity, discipline, and a heart striving for Allah, you will find that the marriage itself becomes a means of further growth and blessing, not a mirror that exposes the flaws you denied.